Moderna COVID-19 Vaccine in Overview. This is part 2 series of the 7-part series for coronavirus vaccine manufacturers. You can watch the part 1 series on the description below. Brought to you by HealthyRN Ways. Please like, Sarah and subscribe to my channel to see through whole 7 parts. Posting of the rest of videos every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Moderna's vaccine is the second to receive US approval. As cases of novel coronavirus, COVID-19, rise in a predicted winter surge, a number of vaccines are in the pipeline to help bring an end to the pandemic. One of these is Moderna's vaccine, called mRNA-1273. Moderna's vaccine is the second vaccine to receive emergency use authorization from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA. Moderna, an American biotechnology company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, began developing its vaccine in January 2020. The company worked with the National Institutes of Health, NIH, to finalize gene sequencing for the virus and began working on developing the vaccine soon after. The first batch of the vaccine was developed in early February, just 25 days after the gene was sequenced. The first dose of the vaccine was given by March 2020 in a Phase 1 clinical trial, and those early trials showed promising results. By mid-year, Moderna received funding and fast-track regulatory allowances to help move development along. While a vaccine initially wasn't expected for 18 months or more, the new developments meant Moderna could deliver millions of doses much sooner. In August 2020, the US government ordered 100 million doses of the vaccine, even though it hadn't even been approved for use yet, and in November, results of the Phase 1 clinical trial were published. Point 2. In December, results from Phase 3 clinical trials were published and the US ordered an additional 100 million doses. When was Moderna's vaccine officially approved? American health officials granted Moderna's vaccine an emergency use authorization on December 18 for adults 18 and older, making it the second vaccine to receive the designation from US health officials in 1 week. How it works: the Moderna vaccine is an mRNA vaccine, similar to the one developed by Pfizer. The technology behind these vaccines has been around for about 3 decades and shown promise in preventing notoriously difficult to prevent diseases, even cancer. Unlike conventional vaccines that use inactivated or live viruses, mRNA vaccines are non-infectious and contain no parts of the virus they fight. This makes mRNA vaccines safer for certain populations. An mRNA, messenger ribonucleic acid, vaccine is a single-stranded molecule that complements a strand of your DNA. These strands have a special coating that can protect mRNA from chemicals in the body that can break it down, and help it enter muscle cells. Rather than exposing the body to a small amount of virus to create an immune response, mRNA causes the vaccine recipient to make the protein of interest. This includes helping the cell make part of the spiked protein that makes COVID-19 so potent, teaching immune cells to recognize and fight similar spiked proteins. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, mRNA vaccines teach our cells how to make a protein, or even just a piece of a protein. This triggers an immune response. Moderna's vaccine was initially tested in adults aged 18 to 55. The Phase 1 trial investigated 3 different doses, 25, 100, and 250 micrograms, given twice, 28 days apart. By the Phase 3 trial, Moderna zeroed in on a 2-dose formula of 100 micrograms each, given in 2 doses about 4 weeks apart. How was Moderna's vaccine tested? Moderna's Phase 3 trial tested a 2-dose vaccine, 100 micrograms each, given 28 days apart, in adults ages 18 and older. The trial had more than 30,000 participants, including about 7,500 adults ages 65 and older and more than 5,000 adults ages 18 to 64 with risk factors for severe illness from COVID-19. How effective is it? Researchers that conducted the trials were able to test how effective the vaccine is in creating antibodies and neutralizing responses with tests that use bodily fluids like blood or urine to see whether antibodies to a particular virus can be found. These tests include ELISA, enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay test, PSVNA, pseudotype lentivirus reporter single round of infection neutralization assay, PRNT, plaque reduction neutralization test. Antibody levels from these tests were compared to those found in people who had recovered from COVID-19 infections. The study investigated responses by other immune cells, like T cells. After the first round of vaccinations in the 100 microgram and 250 microgram formulas in the Phase 1 trial, antibody responses were similar to the median level of immunity in those who had recovered from and had natural immunity after a COVID-19 infection. Other immunity tests, like the PSVNA, showed little response after the first dose. However, after the second doses, antibody and other immune responses were strong among the vaccination group, reaching levels that were close to those with the highest immune responses in those who had recovered from COVID-19. Immune responses developed within about 2 weeks of the first dose, according to the trial report, but were much stronger after the second dose. Exactly how effective is it? Moderna's vaccine has been shown in trials to be very effective, preventing COVID-19 in 94.1% of the people enrolled in the Phase 3 clinical trial. Additionally, the vaccine seems to have broad efficacy, with success rates consistent across various age, race, ethnicity, and gender groups. The lifespan of these vaccines isn't clear yet, but the leaders of the trial say they will keep collecting blood samples from the study group to check for immunity throughout the first year after vaccination. In the past, viruses in the same virus families don't generate long-lived immune responses, the trial report notes. When will it be available? Moderna received emergency use authorization from the FDA for its vaccine on December 18. Distribution may be a bit easier for Moderna than Pfizer since its vaccine can be stored at standard refrigerator temperatures for 30 days, or frozen at about -20 degrees Celsius for 6 months. The Pfizer vaccine has to be stored at much colder temperatures. As far as cost goes, Moderna announced during an internal conference call in August that the vaccine could cost between $32 and $37 per dose, but final prices may change when the worst of the pandemic has passed. According to the CDC, doses of the vaccines that have been purchased by the US government will be available to citizens free of charge. In addition to the 200 million doses already ordered by the US government, it has the option to purchase 300 million more. As of January 26, Moderna had supplied 30.4 million doses to the US and 10.1 of these doses had been administered. Moderna also announced that it is on track to deliver 100 million doses to the US by the end of March and the additional 100 million doses by the end of June. The company has also reached agreements to supply the vaccine to several other countries, including European Union, 80 million initial doses with an option for another 80 million doses, Japan, 50 million doses, Canada, 40 million doses with an option for an additional 16 million, Switzerland, 7.5 million doses, United Kingdom, 7 million doses, Israel, 6 million doses. A number of other countries have also placed orders with the company, but the number of doses ordered was not disclosed. While the vaccine itself will be free if purchased by the government, there could be fees charged by vaccine providers who administer the vaccine. Reimbursement programs for these administrative costs should be available through both public and private insurance plans, as well as through the Health Resources and Services Administration's Provider Relief Fund for people with no public or private health insurance. Who can get the Moderna vaccine? Now that vaccines are on the way, the question becomes who will get them and when. The CDC anticipated limited supplies in the initial phase of the vaccination program, and recommendations for who should receive the vaccine first were made by CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, ACIP, in December 2020 based on earlier guidance from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. In terms of the order, federal health officials decided that healthcare workers and people living in long-term care facilities should be the first to receive the first of the vaccines, which have been limited at first as manufacturing ramps up. According to the CDC, there are more than 18 million healthcare providers in the US, and about 1.3 million Americans living in long-term care facilities. Each of these people would need to receive 2 doses of the top vaccine contenders so far, totaling nearly 40 million doses needed for the initial phase of vaccination. The CDC estimates it will take several months before the supply of vaccines catches up to the demand. Guidance on who will receive the vaccine and when will be decided as supplies become available. The US alone has a population of about 330 million, meaning nearly 700 million vaccine doses will be needed to vaccinate all of America as other vaccines follow a 2-vaccine dose. Although little information is available yet on the specifics of when everyone will receive the vaccination, and where they can get it, state and local health departments will be coordinating efforts to distribute doses of the vaccines as they become available. The vaccine should be available both in physician offices and retail locations like pharmacies that administer other vaccines. The Moderna vaccine is given in 2 doses that are 28 days apart. The CDC recommends that the second dose be given as close as possible to the 28 days, yet grants a 4-day grace period when it can be given slightly earlier and allows the second dose to be given within 42 days of the first dose in cases where the 28-day window isn't feasible. When will children be able to get the vaccine? Children will not receive the vaccine at first, as trials have only been conducted in adults. Moderna began recruiting participants for a clinical trial in 12 to 17-year-olds in December. Trials for younger children are still in the planning stages. Children and teens may be able to receive the vaccine later in 2021. Side effects and adverse events. People who took part in the study were asked to record any reactions to the vaccine, either to the area where the vaccine was injected or that they experienced overall. Pain at the site where the vaccine was injected and overall tiredness were the most common side effects in the Phase 3 trial. Systemic effects are reactions that affect the entire body, and headache and fatigue topped that list and were most common in the vaccine group. Less than 20% of the people who were vaccinated report a fever after the second dose. Local effects, on the other hand, affect only a small, limited area. The most common effect in this category was pain at the injection site. The severity of reactions increased with the second dose of the vaccine. Few reactions were rated as severe with the first dose of the vaccine, but several were rated as severe after the second dose. The most common reactions reported by participants after the second dose of the vaccine were pain at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle aches, chills, joint pain, nausea or vomiting, fever, red or swollen areas at the injection site, and swollen or enlarged lymph nodes were also reported. The percentage of serious adverse reactions was the same for the placebo and vaccine groups, 0.6%, and did not indicate any safety concerns. There was also no evidence of vaccine-associated enhanced respiratory disease in the trials. Previous vaccines for coronavirus in veterinary use and animal models have led to respiratory problems related to vaccination. More observation will be done on the study groups as time goes on, and more studies are planned on special populations, like children, people with chronic illnesses, pregnant and other related disease. Funding and development. Moderna worked with the National Institutes of Health and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to develop its vaccine. The company received about $1.6 billion in federal funding through the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA, a U.S. government program working to speed up the manufacture and distribution of vaccines to fight COVID-19. The U.S. government exercised its option for an additional 100 million doses from Moderna for around $1.68 billion. Moderna is the 7th to have received the vaccine approval. The third is the Johnson & Johnson, that is coming on my next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you won't miss out the other 5 more vaccine manufacturers. Thank you for watching. See you on my next video. Ma salam.